Hi, I'm John Stringbean, and today we're talking about the 1950s, specifically Mrs. Nolte's favorite, guns, germs, and steel. Wait, no, that doesn't sound right. Drums, girls, and dangerous pie. We also know. I got it, sexism, conformity, and the ultimate threat of nuclear annihilation.
Wow!
Here at Obstacle Course History, we love to talk about women and minorities and how terrible white males were. Still are. The 1950s were a rocky transitional period between wartime America and its culture and societal values and the societal values of the new civil rights era. While many women occupied important jobs during the Second World War, the return of soldiers pushed many of these women back into the home. Domestic positions became their norm again, and this didn't sit too well with women. Many of them found the idea of watching a sandwich tutorial for their man a little sexist. And it didn't look too bright for women, as many of their rallies and protests were labeled as communist propaganda. What was that, Flat Stanley? It's time for the Documento Misterioso? Well, you know how it works. I read the Documento Misterioso, and then I pretend actually get shocked when I get it wrong. I appreciated most highly your letter of the 28th, and what I appreciated most was the fact that Mrs. Acheson had good news with regard to your daughter. Mrs. Truman and I have been very much interested in her welfare and recovery. I think that we have these animals on the run. Privately, I refer to McCarthy as a pathological liar, and Wary as the block-headed undertaker from Nebraska. Of course, we can't do that publicly, but there's no doubt that's exactly what they are. Probably a letter from President Abraham Lincoln? What, Flat Stanley? It was a letter from President Truman to Secretary of State Dean Acheson? That was too difficult, Flat Stanley. Well, guess I gotta get shocked. This letter is significant because it shows the great distaste high-up government officials had with McCarthy, his cronies, and his practices. The period of 1950 to 54 is known for McCarthy's persecution of celebrities and notable Americans, primarily those from the entertainment industry, where he labeled these men and women as communists and traitors. We call this period of 1950s the Second Red Scare. Some historians believe that McCarthy was responsible for the post-war hysteria, while others just believe he was capitalizing on already present fears. By 1949, the USSR had tested nuclear weaponry, with help from information stolen from the US in 1946 by Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. The very same year, Mao Zedong, communist leader of China, took full power on the mainland and began to support occupied North Korea. With this added tension and the release of the Truman Doctrine in 1947, the US started to see its role in the world differently. The nation began to assume a role similar to that of an international police officer, with the ultimate goal of containing communism. But more importantly, we claimed our rightful position in the world: political terrorists. In order to fix Cuba, we almost assassinated Castro 638 separate times, and then failed at the Bay of Pigs invasion. And then there was the Cuban Missile Crisis. So we're kind of over 640 in Cuba, but that didn't stop us from funding every single Muslim separatist group in the Middle East. And that one didn't even bite us in the butt until 9/11. What's important to take away from the 1950s is that this period, along with the Second Red Scare and the tension that came with it, that began the Cold War, have strong influences on our lives today. At the time, not funding anti-USSR terrorist groups may have strengthened them. However, it may have also prevented the costly war in the Middle East that we experience today. Furthermore, without the societal pressures on women and minorities that we see during the 1950s, we may not have had such a volatile and successful civil rights era following the 1950s.
Produced and directed by Stan Mower. The script supervisor is Meredith Danko. Our associate producer is Danica Johnson. The show is written by my high school history teacher, Raul Meyer, and myself, and our graphics team is Thought Cafe.